my blue-eyed son.
What attracted me to this movie from the beginning was its aspects as a kind of fable or fairy tale of what it is to be touched, both a curse and a blessing, and how it taints and changes your relationships with everyone you love or hate or meet.
I'll walk to the depths of the deepest black forest.
It's sort of most fascinating in any artist journey. You know, what did it begin like?
You kind of see him as Robert Zimmerman when he was not yet Bob Dylan.
The film talks about the music, of course, but it also talks about musicians' relationship with fame.
The story is about this question of genius and talent, and how does someone have it, and how does it affect everyone else around it. These are universal questions.
And it's a hard, oh, it's a hard, it's a hard rain gonna fall. Thank you.
I'm not really interested in cradle-to-grave stories. When we make a fictional movie, we do a story about a specific moment, period, or section of a person's life where certain themes and conflicts bring certain ideas to a fore.
This movie covers 1961 to 1965, so blasphemously or not, depending on where you sit in the Church of Bob, this kind of covers the period of his life that's the least chronicled.
What I loved about this period in Dylan's life and in folk history was that there was such an incredibly interesting story, even if you have no idea about the folk music scene in the 60s or Bob Dylan even. The story in itself is a kind of really magical and resonant story about being an artist and how we find our way in the world.
Okay, Bob, let's lay one down, yeah?
All right.
Bob did meet with Jim several times, and it was a great collaboration between the two of them.
I've made a lot of different kinds of movies, and I've always felt people trying to figure out, who is he? And so one of the things when I began writing this that I really identified with is with Bob. He has all his life resisted being put in a box. And we set,
Yep.
and action.
Jim's just a brilliant filmmaker, from the way he works with actors to his writing to the way he puts scenes together, the way he works with his crew.
Jim was the perfect guy to direct this in that he knew how to make it at an elevated level, shoot it beautifully, like almost in a way you don't see a lot of imagery of Bob like that at the time. He was able to like streamline this thing without sacrificing Bob's idiosyncrasies or making him something he wasn't at the time.
Yeah, it's not skeptical, but let him win you in the shot.
He also knows how to dial all that into a story that is layered and yet simple enough to reach out and grab anyone and make them care.
Jim is like out of an old school film set. There's authority. He's a strong presence. He feels like a captain of a ship, and you know you're in great hands.
And cut, good. We got it. Turn it around. Cut. Having been fortunate enough to spend time talking to Bob while working on the script, what I was so grateful for was, he read my last drafts on the script and just went through them with me page by page. One of the things that's really clear to me, you can be really good at writing songs, and you can be really good at recording them and singing them and playing them, but that doesn't make you necessarily good or receptive to what stardom or fame brings.
I think I'm gonna let Joan Baez finish this show, folks. Have a good night, everyone.
So the questions that the movie raises to me about the burden of being brilliant, but also the mysteries of it.
Come gather round, people, wherever you roam.
When Timmy first came on, I told him this story about how when we were making Walk the Line, Walk would come up to me very often and he'd say, "Tell me that thing." And I'd say, "You're not Johnny Cash." And he'd go, "Thank you." That's one of the greatest things I think I can offer the actor playing an iconic role like this is peace, a kind of zen. I don't want mimicry. I don't want an impression. No one wants to watch someone do a Bob Dylan impression for 2 hours. What movies are about, or at least for me, is about investigating what they're feeling and what they were going through.
Peanut, I used to live on these things and I worked at the carnival.
Somebody like Bob Dylan, who's been so deeply impersonated, out of joy, out of comedy. They're a professional Dylan impressionist in Vegas, you know, so I could like cosplay the shit out of this and get this totally right from a behavioral point of view. And then the risk is that everyone else is, you know, seeing someone do a great impression.
I want Timmy to bring who he is to Bob. You, of course, want to carry aspects of them, but you want the aspects that also synthesize with who you are as an actor.
Bobby Miller.
The most important thing for me was that he get to work playing guitar and singing, just on the level of getting his skills up. How can you possibly make a movie about someone who just sings kind of naked alone with a guitar, only every time they do, it's some kind of unearthly voice coming through their body falsely? It seems to run in direct contradiction. So that was the very first thing I just exhorted Timmy to do.
All right, Tom. Let's call this, Subterranean Homesick Blues.
I brought on like dialect coach and movement coach and Eric Vitro, the vocal coach.
John is in the basement, mixing up the medicine. I'm on the pavement, thinking about the government.
It's at a certain time period, a certain year, so we would try to capture what he was doing at that time. How did he sound and why did he sound that way?
God knows when, but you're doing it again.
And who had influenced him. You go, okay, he was influenced by this particular person, so then Timmy would listen to that person sing as well.
Maggie comes feet, foot, face full of black soot, talking at the heat, put plants in the bed, but
Timmy was so committed to the role. I had heard his voice in recordings and realized how excellent he was for this part and how incredible he sounded.
He is not only singing the music, but he is playing the guitar, he's playing the harmonica. He's studied Bob as a character, as a person, and he's really created for the audience this Bob Dylan that we've never seen on screen before.
You know, there's a lot of roles that don't call for the level of dedication that Timothy did, and I was bowled over by the depth of his focus.
My way in was with the music, you know, that's like my confident spot in the movie.
I arranged the songs in a hierarchy of this is an easier one, this is really hard, and everything in the middle. And I would explain to him, don't get nervous if this takes you a minute. This is difficult, but somehow within like 90 seconds, the guy was going ching, chicka, chicka, ching, chicka, chicka. I could be showing somebody that for 6 months and they could never get it. He'd get the guitar and the harmonica and play Hard Rain's Gonna Fall or something. I'm just sitting there watching this guy thinking, do you believe what this guy just did?
Time of preparation is everything, and allowing him the chance to kind of explore these songs, make them his own. He doesn't have to think about how he's fingering the chords. He doesn't have to think about singing alone, just singing, singing, singing until that too is something normal for him.
See ya. How are you, man? Back at it. Sir. How you guys doing? That's Mike.
I'm the guy.
Cool. Timothy.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
It ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe.
He's been in the recording studio for 18 months relentlessly. He's 40 songs in the movie that he performs live, take after take after take.
I remember hearing him perform for the first time, and I was just an audience member in that scene, and it was the first time I saw him as Bob Dylan. I had goosebumps.
Excuse me, Mr. Guthrie.
There was a moment early on in the movie where Bob first comes to meet Woody Guthrie. There was just a power to what Timmy channeled in that scene. It makes me feel like we've captured something amazing.
Woody wants to hear something.
The music's most exciting to me, you know, because it's just incredible. And to be wailing on the guitar, the preparation didn't feel like preparation. You know, it wasn't like, oh, I got these 3 months. This was like a years-long process of osmosis that I'm terrified to even say goodbye to now. Thank you guys so much for that energy, man, because that's gonna help us out so much tonight, so thank you.
You like that rock and roll music then?
Well, I like everything, Pete. Except maybe, Patty Page and that doggy in the window, or, you know, Von Monroe.
One of the things that's most important to me in all my movies are the performances, is the collaboration with the actors.
Let it play it out, and think, all right.
Edward's a movie director himself. He's a really good writer, a brilliant thinker, and a great actor. And in many ways, he couldn't have been a more ideal actor to play this role.
Edward probably got the least amount of time of any of us to wrap his head around the character, and he did an extra, I mean, he fully went for it.
The reasons you might admire Bob Dylan and reasons you might admire Pete Seeger can be divergent without diminishing either one.
The bases among you, male or female. Here's what you sing.
Getting to learn and play the music itself, to be honest, was a huge hook for me.
He understands who Pete was, he understands the music, and he is playing his own music. He learned the banjo.
I'm not a classically trained musician, but I know my way around guitar. Banjo is a really different instrument, but I had a good grounding.
Little Boxes, anyone know Pete Seeger's Little Boxes? Yeah, Malvina Reynolds wrote it, very good. This one knows.
This was a time in which music and the social issues of the day were interwoven with each other.
Didn't get the result that we thought was right, but we're free to fight another day.
There was also an opportunity for him to do something very different. Very often Edward is in darker films or plays darker characters. This guy, Pete, is a kind of angel.
You lifted my spirit so much, I might just float on home.
Getting to talk to people from that time who knew Pete Seeger is a huge gift. You're really challenged to find anyone who says anything negative about him. The level of enduring admiration for the way he conducted himself and lived his life is incredible.
I was aware that the character couldn't speak, which first came to me as oh, okay, there's less to do here, which later turned into this is like one of the hardest roles that I've ever played. You're trying to act without all the tools that you're really used to.
That's for damn sure.
When you're asking an actor to reach deep, they have to know you have their back and that you see the same goal, that you're after the same things. And so when I was looking for someone to play Joan, I was looking for someone who could embody this kind of gravitas, because I think it's part of what was so attractive and interesting to Bob. And Monica brings this kind of strength and this sense of self.
Pick something appropriate.
Appropriate?
Fuck off and sing. Go away from my window.
Monica did that magic thing actors can do where you don't see what they're doing on set and then you see it in the film or on a monitor, and she just brought it to life.
I didn't play guitar. I could kind of play the ukulele and I'd sing in the shower. That was pretty much where I started this.
She worked so hard over a year or two, both on guitar, in voice, and she just was in the recording studio endlessly.
Much of working on the music actually gave me so much insight into who she was and what the time was like. Rather than just trying to match the sound exactly, it was the essence of the song and how she sang it and why she sang each song that she did.
But it ain't me, babe. No, it ain't me, babe.
In many ways, the role of Sylvie in the movie is kind of the one normal person in this world of eccentrics.
Their relationship is so beautiful because as his star is rising, she's trying to meet him there.
It was fun to be on the carnival train with you, Bobby.
She is very uniquely herself and very confident in her own skin, but she realized that life just wasn't for her.
Elle is someone I've known a long time. I've worked with her before, and the benefit you have with an actor and actress when you work with them in the past is it was sort of like already a working relationship, and it was good for Bob and Sylvie.
Timmy and I, we get to be open and laugh, and it's not a heaviness when Sylvie and Bob are together until kind of the end.
Johnny Cash made himself into a kind of mythic or Western figure.
I see you in there.
I just felt Boyd would have fun with this.
Well, it's Johnny Cash. I did the voice coach, singing coach, about 2 hours a day for 5 months. Just immersing myself in him, his voice.
You better sing about that rooster crowing till the break of dawn, because I need to learn the damn words.
Boyd made it his own, you know, and feels just as authentic and true as Joaquin Phoenix's performance of Johnny Cash.
I love the idea of Boyd's kind of masculine, dark energy inhabiting this role and how that would play against Timmy.
Oh, Hey there,
How you
Bobby.
doing?
Carving out that sort of hollow tree within myself to get that resonance, which was a process, man. It took me a long time to do that. I dyed my hair brown and put on some more weight and put on a schnoz. And then we even had like spacers behind the ears. But playing like make-believe at this level is pretty high.
You playing tonight?
Yeah. That's what the program says, but I'm not sure they want to hear what I want to play, Johnny.
Who's they?
We pay money to go see a movie because we want to learn something about ourselves or the world or feel something. And that's going to only come from finding the part of that person that is also in you, but always carrying the part that is you with it. The costume designer is also, in a way, one of my first ambassadors with the actors. Those first meetings they have with Ariane, where they begin to put on the clothes and look in a mirror and kind of inhabit the physicality of the actor, is critical.
This is a story about changing times, and Bob Dylan was a reflection of what was happening in the culture at that time. So I think there's an honesty. As an audience, we get to experience that with Bob Dylan. And this is pre-hippie, you know, we're 61, 65. So you see with Bob Dylan, he was really influenced not only by Woody Guthrie's musical style, but his sensibility and the way he dressed. He dressed like a working man, plaid shirts and Pendletons and work shirts. And that was a real departure from how his parents dressed, how older people dressed.
Ariane's a master costume designer, and definitely Bob was trying to style himself like a troubadour in the beginning of his career, so she was very disciplined about wearing what he wore on the day.
I was really surprised that Bob Dylan wore so many jeans in the early years. They were called dungarees at the time. They were really for the working man. So I needed help to identify what brands he was wearing. So I have some very good friends at Levi's, and they have a wonderful archive department. Famously, he wore Levi's 501s. And one thing we learned is that when he wore his cowboy boots with his jeans, his girlfriend made these patches where she created probably like the first version of a flare way before the 70s and the mid 60s to fit over Bob's cowboy boots.
Being someone who's made fantastical movies and big budget movies and small budget movies, there's this term world building. Every movie is world building. You have to teach the audience how this world works. Couldn't we kind of take them as right here?
Yeah.
You could start on it. Yeah. You could cross the drums. I'm a big music fan, so the idea of kind of reconstructing a world that I was not alive for or just a baby when it was happening was exciting.
On Jim's movies, I start with quite an extensive lookbook, which is a combination of visual reference and also inspirational reference. And we created one on this movie that was like 200 pages long, going through the whole story, all the characters.
I've worked with Francois many times, and I think what to me was so fascinating and exciting and such a wonderful palette for him to work in was it's such a beautiful period in New York's history.
I was really inspired by the photographers who followed Dylan around, like Don Hunstein, and the photographers who photographed New York City in the 1960s, and the kind of the Kodachrome look of the 60s that was very unique film stocks back then, and trying to weave that into a color story for the movie.
And Francois did an incredible amount of research. We have, have all these books at home of textures and colors, and so that's been great. Whenever you do a historical piece, you have a lot of material. Bob's life's been very well documented.
One of the big efforts of the movie that Francois spearheaded was just locations. Where can I find a city block that looks like McDougal Street? Where can I find a city block that looks like CBS Records in Midtown Manhattan in 1961? And the answer was in New Jersey.
It turns out that this side of the river looks more like New York did than New York does now. There's a lot of texture and beauty to the New Jersey side, particularly Hoboken and Jersey City.
Ready and background, action!
Greenwich Village was really an artist community with craftsmen and artists making things by hand. I was really into embracing traditional craftsmanship to all the sets more than new technology. All of the signage is hand painted with brushes. A lot of the sets are built with hand tools, and there's this real visceral sort of handmade craftsmanship quality that I think is a throwback to another time that doesn't exist anymore. We're standing in the middle of McDougal Street as it would have appeared in 1961. This is a real labor of love, and it's taken 3 years of research. I actually did a zigzag of every street in Hoboken and Jersey City on a map to find this exact perfect block that had the right bones that I felt could turn into Cafe Wah and these jazz clubs and Swing Rendezvous and the Folklore Center. Jim really imagined a textured movie that was gritty with peeling plaster and decaying walls and rust and cigarette butts and trash. In every one of the locations, I kept pushing the painters, pushing the dressers to add that visceral sort of layering.
Actually, my first day shooting, they're wedding down the street, and someone came over and started dumping out, temporarily, vintage Coke and beer cans on the side of the street and vintage newspapers. And I was like, whoa, the trash from that time brought so much authenticity.
The production design was just spot on, you know. I mean, if you look at Francois's production design at Bob's apartment, you look at image references at the time, I mean, they got the coffee stains right. I stepped in that apartment the first time, my breath got taken away.
You could really learn a lot about Bob Dylan and what he was like as a young adult.
Once upon a time, you're just so fine.
Just sitting quietly in that space and like drinking it in, drinking in the details.
I mean, it's super messy. It's like a bachelor pad. I mean, Sylvie comes along, she cleans it up a little bit, but you know, they're both these young artists like trying to make it and living in the city.
We had a few hundred photographs that were taken inside of his apartment, and we went through and pulled all of the details and in books that were written from people who had been through the space, and it's very, very authentic. So we're standing in Columbia Record Studio A, which used to be at 799 7th Avenue in Manhattan. No longer there, but it's really hallowed ground because Bob Dylan recorded his first 6 albums here.
People call, say, beware, doll, you're bound to fall. You thought they were all kidding you.
Jim challenged us to recreate this as closely as possible, so we did a forensic recreation, which means that it's an audio-visual experience. Everything here is programmed to work practically, meaning we're set up to record all of the performances for real. All of the microphones are real period microphones. All the instruments are real period instruments. And we worked closely with the sound team on the film to figure it out.
We have done this movie 100% live. There's no earpiece, there's no timing mechanism or anything.
How does it feel?
They brought in so much gear. I don't even know how they found all this gear, honestly. You know, a lot of times with new studios, when they get built, there's no vibe. They're kind of plasticky at first and sterile, and actually this one, it already feels like it has a spirit to it, even though we've only been in here a couple days.
We use all vintage microphones on this. There's always a microphone here and a microphone for the guitar. And every venue that we shoot in, we use a different vintage microphone so that we can create a real tapestry of sounds.
You want him, you got him.
We shot the Newport Folk Festival. I have everybody wired, and plus there's scenes that are going on at the same time.
This is chaos. You've got to turn it down. I can't do that. I know you know who I am, son.
Plus, I have microphones that are out in the field recording the crowd.
As a storyteller, it's my job to invite the audience into how the world is different and to imbue that world with the collaboration of such skilled people like Francois and Ari and Faden is to create a world in which you fall into it and you forget your own and you start living in theirs.
Like a complete unknown.